very good evening and a warm welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. Tonight, the conversation about COVID-19 continues, and not to count numbers this time, but to look at our individual situations. Experts have over the last couple of weeks spelled it out loud and clear. Tough economic times ahead. And that really tells us that we, if we are proactive, must start to think proactively about our businesses, our jobs. So tonight, what happens when after all this is over, you have no job to go back to? We speak to Eunice Mwangala, who has been in a similar situation.
Hi, my name is Eunice Mwangala. I'm an IT specialist with over 12 years experience. And I happen to work with one of the telecom companies on one of its big projects in Africa. So midway the project, the company decided to restructure in order to manage its costs. And as a result, some contracts for the people on the project team were terminated and others were not renewed as earlier planned. So mine was among those that were not renewed as had earlier been planned. And so once my contract ended, I had to end my relationship with the company. So this made me come to the realization that there was no longer going to be a paycheck at the end of every month. And so I had to rethink my life after that job. So after some thought and soul searching, I decided I wasn't going to look for a job, but I was going to create one. And that is how I started my fashion company.
Now, our current situation as a country and also worldwide will present situations that we must deal with. Your employer could change the way things are done now. They could ask you to work from home even after the pandemic. They could cut working hours and pay per hour. They might not have as much work for you to do, or your job could be made redundant. So first with these scenarios, we're joined by Joan Mugenzi, an author and employment transition coach. She's the author of the book Corporates at Crossroads. Also joining us is Ronald Mukasa, a financial literacy coach. He works with Enterprise Uganda as Director Research, Innovation and Learning. Thank you both for joining us. Your work both really speaks to life in general, but I guess the one eventuality that we never think of is times like this.
I did my master's in public health and I understood pandemics, but I don't think I ever understood the magnitude of what a pandemic could be. So COVID has really shown us what the true meaning of a pandemic is. And this means that for this season, for the employees, it is a very challenging time. A challenging time from the perspective of you'd understand where the employer is coming from, because if things are not happening, then they cannot keep you in the job. Those who are going to be able to keep their employees in the job, it means that there are so many scenarios that they've probably worked through.
That's true.
Of recent, most of the calls that I get are calls from distressed employees. And this is one of those scenarios that we've always kept on painting as we've spoken to employees, telling them that yes, it is one thing to have a contract that says you have 5 years to work or you have a permanent and pensionable job the way you want to look at it, but anything can happen. And this is one thing that has happened. When we say anything can happen, now the pandemic has happened. And that disrupts the work environment, and it is certainly going to have an impact on many workers. Some of them have already been affected. I remember I got a distressed caller who called, and then when we were busy talking, the first thing that was coming to their mind is that they wanted to go and do jail. And so as we were through with that conversation, when we were going through that conversation, I asked them, so where exactly was their destination? And they turned out laughing because they realized that
that option is no longer available.
They realized that, yeah, there is no place to go to. So you have to think about what is happening now. Of course, the first scenario is that people are going to be shocked. And shock is a normal way of responding, and it is okay to be shocked. But after you have gone through the shock, you have to wake up to the reality and begin thinking, how do I reposition myself to the market? Because you're not alone. Several people are going to be affected. So the ones who are going to pull through are the ones who are going to play to win. And playing to win would mean you repackage yourself, you rebrand yourself, rethink what you have to offer, and rethink whatever you have to offer, how does it respond to the environment at the moment.
All right, thank you, Joanne. Ronald, what are you thinking? Have you got any distressed callers that have called you and they just badly need you to help them through this situation? And how are you as an individual handling all of this?
I think many times when you talk about shock, it is easier to talk about when it hasn't happened. I think all of us are feeling this in a very real way. Things we used to take for granted have actually all of a sudden come to a standstill. I think from how my engagement with people, and on a very personal basis, I think for me one of the things which has clearly happened is this is such a time of reflection for every individual. You have to sit at home and figure out, you take your food budget more seriously, you pay attention to whether you have enough to take you through the next 2 weeks, and what if the period we are in is extended? What does that mean? If you have a small garden at home, you pay more attention to it because that next batch of matoke may come from there. If you think about even just having liquidity, you pay attention to your bank account and you're saying, how can it take it through? So I think most of us, we are paying more attention to our budgets. You are careful what commitments you make. If someone receives a message from a friend at this time organizing a wedding meeting, I suspect that the majority of people will say, I just can't make a contribution right now. So you are really very careful about how you're spending money. And I think that is, as you mentioned, that is what shock does. Shock kind of brings you to a reality of what exactly the situation is right now. And I think many times you have to also observe that your mind is sharpest when you are going through shock. You pay attention to which small things you can do at home to build an income. You pay attention to how household items are being used. If you have been using a bar of soap within a couple of days, now you are careful and you make sure you are getting value out of that bar of soap. And that kind of detailed look at your personal finances at home, I think is something which inevitably can help all of us step into a better way of managing our personal finances.
All right, well, now to both of you, how do we even begin to prepare ourselves for the harsh reality of what may or what will come?
One of the webinars that I've attended in this season, one of the experts in this phase says that the best thing that one can do for starters, if, for example, you're a business person, start off by assuming that in the next 6 months, there is not a penny that is going to come into your business. And
Wow.
let that sink in. So that for the next 6 months, if no penny is going to come to you, then how are you going to address that? So that is one scenario, because like we keep on saying, at the moment, no one knows how this thing is going to turn out. But such phases come and go. But how the best way to sail through is to think about the reality. It is okay to be optimistic. I'm a person of faith, and I believe that God will carry us through this phase. But then as an individual, sit down and check your circumstances. You cannot afford to continue leading your life in a luxurious manner without understanding where your monies are going, when probably in the next 6 months, no penny is going to come into your account, or even a year, okay? Because sometimes it's easier if you're running the business, then you know this is what has been happening. You already know that things are going to happen and they're going to go haywire. If you're an employee, hopefully you will be retained. But if you're not retained, how are you going to package yourself? I think right now what we need are thinking conversations. You need a thinking space. And I'm talking about this as a professional coach, because we normally say, what brought you into a place will not take you to the next level. This is a scenario where you need to sit and think through putting your panic button on hold. Get somebody that can help you ask the most difficult questions and be able to respond to those questions. Otherwise, dashing to the bank and withdrawing all your money might be a disservice to yourself because you're operating in a panic mode. You need to cross-check those things. And like Ronald was saying, this is a reflective moment. I think it's a beautiful moment in the sense of people finally having time to themselves and saying, okay, by the way, what am I good at? If what I'm offering is not an essential service, because now in this season, we are beginning to appreciate the meaning of essential services. If what I'm offering is not an essential service, how do I turn myself into somebody that can be meaningful during this season and post the season? Am I going to continue with the kind of work that I've been doing? Is there a talent that I'm sitting on that might come in handy right now? We saw people beginning to sew masks, okay? Because probably they are just responding to that. I've seen businesses now get into producing sanitizers. It's more about thinking what is relevant in this moment that you have to go into the next phase. And for the leaders, especially in organizations, the way we package the news of how either we are going to make our employees redundant or how we are going to cut back on the time that they are going to offer to the organization, it's also, we need to realize that this is a bit traumatic to the employees. So we need to be a little bit empathetic as we deliver the bad news, because many people, many human resource practitioners, I'm sure this is not the best time for them because they're going to be the bearers of the bad news.
It definitely isn't a good time.
To tell people that they are rendering them redundant. They are the very ones who are going to tell people you're going to begin teleworking, but then they're telling you telework, you've not been using all these gadgets. There's a lot of learning that is going to happen. So reflect, do a lot of learning, think about how you're going to repackage yourself and reposition yourself for the market.
All right. Joan, you paint a harsh reality of 6 months with nothing coming to your pocket. And I think a lot of employers have already begun to realize that. We've already seen some companies lay off some people, even in the first month of COVID-19 affecting the country. Ronald, what are your thoughts on how we prepare ourselves for what's coming or what has already come? All right, let's take a short break as we try to get Ronald and Joan back to continue with our conversation. We'll be right back. Well, we lost Ronald there, but he's going to share with us some information on clips that he will share with us, and we'll insert them. But Joan, keeping with the conversation, how does one start to try to figure out how to transition to a life outside of formal employment? And this is for people who might have already been laid off during this period or even before, and people who are just thinking about it now, looking at the circumstances or the gloomy picture that that has been painted.
Okay. Josephine, I guess this is one of those seasons where we just need to first go back to the basics. What was one created to do? Because this is a season where if you understand what your purpose is in life, it will give you a starting point. A starting point in the sense that this is a time when you can volunteer a lot of your services, because as you do the voluntary work, you're going to connect to a number of different networks. It is not a time to begin calling everybody and trying to catch up with business, because everyone is already stressed. So you don't want to add to their stress by putting a lot of demands on them. But how can you offer help? How can you be seen to offer a hand that is meaningful? And through that, there are things that you're going to discover about yourself. It is also a time to have very candid conversations and brutal facts about yourself. Reach out to the people that you have been working with, including your bosses. Find out from them, what are the things that you really do well? What are those things that suck? You might not even want to think about them, but let them tell you what it is that you're not good at, because you don't want to be trying out different things at this time. You want to put your best foot forward, and feedback is your best friend therefore. It means that you need to be open to whatever feedback that you're going to get and act on it, not just act up and throw tantrums just because they've told you things that you don't want to hear. And also, of course, there are so many online programs that you can pursue. Find out things that you can learn during this season. That would still mean that you're going to invest in data. I hope that data can eventually do a great job, because I think right now we are facing a lot of wipeout of data. Yesterday they wiped out 21 GBs and yet I hadn't done anything. So
wow.
It's something that when you're beginning to think about this, I don't know what the best mechanisms could be. If there are those books that you have tucked away, please pick them. There's a lot of information that you would find useful.
For somebody who maybe is still in employment, for now at least, and they're thinking about how do I now start exiting, because I know that chances are high, and one of the things that we hear from Eunice when she speaks is that she had a sixth sense. Then she had rumors in the corridor that this was going to happen to her or to a number of people in the organization. What do you start actively doing at that time while you still have your job?
Okay. My guess at the moment is that probably you're going to see job losses for the next 3 years.
I mean,
So
right
some
now
people
the
are
International
thinking-
Labour Organization predicts that COVID-19 could cause the equivalent of 195 million job losses.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so now start with the assumption that you're going to lose your job. And then begin figuring out how much time are you likely to still have in that job. By the way, make sure that you're out of debt in case you're among those that are going to be fortunate to continue with your job. Make sure you get out of debt, because the worst thing that you can have is losing your job and then you're heavily indebted. So clear those debts. Now, the other thing is nurture your networks. Reach out to your networks or even begin building new networks, because the reality is people in your workplace, and I keep on saying this everywhere I go, people in your workplace are never your friends, because the only thing that you all did, you humbly applied for those jobs and ended up in the same space. So when you get friends in the workplace, it's a bonus, but it's not a given. So it means you need to begin building networks out of that place so that those networks can put you into other spaces. And remember, when you go into networks, you don't go there as a parasite, go in to give. Because if you are a giver in those spaces, people are likely to help you. They are likely to help you out. I'm in business and I'm part of the Business Network International. And what I like about that space, even now with COVID, we have an opportunity to meet on a weekly basis and encourage one another and begin asking ourselves the tough questions in terms of what are we meant to do? How can we support each other? You need a network that checks in with you. If you don't have that network, then it's going to be very lonely. And remember, it's lonely and you're tucked away in your house. Nobody knows what is going on. That's why the first person to pick you up is yourself.
All right. And when you say meet, I'm assuming that's virtual meetings, right?
Yes, we are doing virtual meetings. That's why I'm saying we still need to invest. We need data.
Yeah.
We need data. How I wish UCC can come in and intervene. Maybe we should see the MTNs of this world, Airtel, giving us some really, really nice offers as far as this is concerned, because you can't wipe out somebody's data. In the minute, 4 gigabytes are gone. So you're wondering, where is this data going?
That's true. I really think that there's...
To show us Ubuntu.
Yeah, I really think that there's something wrong, particularly with your situation, because when we had that conversation yesterday, I was asking myself, how is that even possible? But thank you so much, Joanne, for taking the time to speak with us and share those insights with us. It's been quite helpful. And what is your final shot for somebody who is out there watching this and just thinking to themselves, you know, maybe they're part of the people who've been restructured, or maybe they're just still comfortable in their job and thinking that could never be me? What are you saying to them?
I think that would be a fallacy, because at least you will hit the retirement age. So if it could never be you, you're likely to hit retirement age and you will lose that job anyway. The critical thing is that anyone that is in a job, at one time it will come to an end. For those of you who are going to work until retirement age and nothing has happened to you, you're offering essential services, because things are happening. I'm part of a group where I saw job offers to people, which is quite exciting. But now the reality is when you get to that point when your job has to come to an end, probably you've reached your retirement age, how have you prepared? Like we've seen a lot of videos moving around and trying to show you and showing you that, okay, fine, now you're getting a taste of what it would be like in retirement. If it's so boring for you right now, just know that you need to begin doing something that can create a bit of excitement in your home, because people look out for you when you know there's value that you're adding to them.
Yeah.
I've reached out to a number of leaders and they're telling me they've never imagined that this would be the busiest season in their lives. When there is a lockdown, people are in meetings from 6:30 a.m. to 11 p.m. That's how serious things are out there. But now for you who is going out there, just know that if you're going to be held on for another year, you thank God, work through that. If it's another 3 years, just work knowing that the reality is you could easily lose your job. But for now, it's to figure out what are those blind spots that you need to improve while you're putting your strength at the fore, so that even your bosses can see what other value you can add. This is not the time for you to stick to your JD. If you are stickler to your JD, I can guarantee you'll be among those ones that they'll say, maybe we can release this person. The more extras that you give, the more you're going to be of benefit to your employer.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Joanne, for speaking to us and sharing those valuable insights. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. We're coming to you from the Kampala Serena Conference Center. We lost Ronald the last time we were trying to talk to him. What happened though? 1 minute.
Well, we are getting used to the new technology. It's a complex new reality, but we are getting there. We're getting there.
Okay. Well, we're so glad you gave us another opportunity to have you on the show.
I'm so glad to be here.
Ronald is a financial literacy coach, in case anybody doesn't know, and he works with the Enterprise Uganda. That's where he's working as we speak. I don't know if you're still sure you have your job, Ronald. We don't know what the future holds.
I'm hopeful.
All right. So from the last time we spoke, we saw a number of statements, flying around from different organizations, just basically telling their people things are not good and prepare for the worst. One organization actually said, handle your money wisely for the month of May, what we paid you for April, because chances are high, March, chances are high you won't get anything at the end of April. And it seems to be something that we need to acquaint ourselves with and just understand that there's going to be a lot of that flying around.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. It's a fascinating time, and a time which no one would have expected. And I think it's important to appreciate that the pain is everywhere. The pain is with the business owner, the pain is with the employees, the pain is with your suppliers, the pain is with your customers, people who were originally doing business with you. So I think it is a unique scenario because it has affected all sides. You don't know where to lean. And I think anyone who is going through this period should know that, as I think was mentioned earlier, we need to accept that this is a new reality. And there are very few options which you find which are going to be painless. So it's going to be a painful time. It means everyone has to kind of tight belt to be able to move through. We have had the head of state tell us as a nation to tight belt, but the business owners are going to tight belt. And even us in our households, we have to kind of tight belt to be able to walk through this period. So I think it's an unprecedented occurrence. No one anticipated. I mean, when you think about something like job loss, it's the first time you see letters from reputable organizations, 5, 6, 7, saying, you know what, we are keeping you on, but we won't pay you for next month, or we might have to let you go for a period of time. And I think this, and some of us haven't yet even, you don't know where you are with your company at this point because your boss hasn't communicated with you. At this point, we want to hope for the best
and plan for the worst. That's really what we want to do. You have your best case scenario and worst case scenario. And I'll talk about two specific people. There is the business owner who is self-employed and he runs a business. He has people he's looking after, but also the business looks after him. And then there is the employee. I'll first talk about the business owner. I think the same way we have seen in the health sector, where COVID has been intertwined. When COVID finds a person who has pre-existing illnesses or ailments, those people suffer more. So if it finds when you have other diseases, you actually suffer more. But it's also true for businesses. I think this period is going to hurt businesses which have pre-existing conditions more. And I want you to pay attention to those pre-existing conditions. Look at your debt levels. Look at your staffing and say, is this the optimum staffing that I need? Look at your customers. Who are your reliable customers who you believe will come back? Which customers don't you think will come back? Are your customers still in business anyway? Because you could be selling to them and you are part of the value chain. So those are questions you need to ask yourself as a business owner now. And also the business owner has to choose between the business and himself. You have to remember that the business is also looking after your day-to-day life. But now the business wants to cut back. And it is saying, you know what, one of the people who may have to cut back is you as the business owner. So the business may ask you to sell your vehicle so that, you know what, you may have to sell the vehicle in the short term to kind of bring our cash flows back to where they are. You may have to release some assets.
And if you're the kind of business owner who looks at the situation, finds the opportunity, seizes it and runs with it, you stand a better chance than people who are just watching and waiting for COVID to end. And we don't know when that...
Exactly. You as a business owner, you need to ask yourself in the sector where I am, what new things have come up? For example, if you have been in trade, you've been running a supermarket, you have actually discovered that it is possible to do delivery to people's homes. And how is that a business opportunity you can pull through after even this crisis? Some of us have had machinery, have been manufacturing, but you never knew that your machinery has capacity to actually create other things. But because of the demand of health and safety equipment, that has happened. So you need to be able to see that opportunity and seize it. I think the dangerous thing for the entrepreneur to do at this time is to look at this situation in disbelief and freeze and stop moving. I think that's a very challenging thing because you as an entrepreneur, all your employees, all your suppliers are relying on you to keep the business going. So you need to make sure that you are teasing out what you need to cut out, teasing out which new opportunities have been created and how you can seize them. And if that happens, then you can find that this is a time which may propel your business to the next level. And in Uganda, we have so many businesses, business people who run various businesses. It's quite a common thing. So you have a supermarket, you also are looking after chicken, and then at the same time doing some agriculture in the village. So that's kind of our business nature. At this point, it's also important to look at each of those business segments and ask yourself, which one am I pulling along but is not actually doing it? Which business should I let go? You have to kind of reflect and ask yourself, what are the efficiency levels of these businesses that I'm running? And are they actually making a difference? And if they're not, then make the tough decisions. I think everyone will forgive you for making tough decisions in this period.
But people who are self-employed and it's a one-man show, you know, you have a skill and you're using your skill to earn from that skill. What is the thinking process for these people then?
I think at this point, especially the people who are self-employed, I'm running possibly a plumber. I do plumbing work. I'm a builder. Generally, I am the trade. Yeah. So the people who are in such categories, I think at this time, you need to notice that you are fighting for two things. You're fighting for yourself and you're fighting for your business. And the survival of both are important to you. So it's a time to reflect on how do I start? I mean, we have been given 21 days. If you're a person who has possibly been, let me give an example. I'll give an example of a plumber. If you have been a plumber, one of the questions you have to ask is, what project are you going to be doing after these 21 days? That question needs to be answered. And a good place to start are the customers who you have looked after in the past. This is a time when you call your customers again. Find out how they are doing. Find out whether they are okay. Find out whether there is any space. Remember, they are going to demand for your services at a cheaper cost. What is going to happen is that someone who gave you 500,000 to do a job last time may only be able to offer 200. But in times of crisis, the 200 is actually not such a bad idea. You can say, let me take that up today as I look for the momentum to start the business again. So you need to quickly say, who are those customers? Especially start from your existing customers, the people who know you. And possibly you do some crazy things like advertising on your Facebook page if you have never. Those are things which you need to actually be doing right now. Why? Because the times are unprecedented. You don't know where the business will come from. So you convert all your 500 Facebook friends and send them a message each. By the way, I am a plumber. I do this kind of work. I can be able to deliver. So that is the mode which we are in. The mode of doing things which you are not doing before to be able to go on. And you will find that this is certainly a very bad thing, but it is temporary. A time will come when it has passed. And when that time comes, you will have learned new lessons of how to do business, which can actually propel you to do better.
Yeah. All right. So you wanted to speak about the employer situation, the employer-employee situation.
Yes. Yeah, I think for the employee, one of the toughest things is that there is much less in your control, especially on your employment. Partly because at this time you have to think about what's going through the mind of your employer. Your employer knows that he has 20 employees and is asking himself, who of these people is indispensable? Now, if you have been the kind of person who has been doing a mediocre job, chances are your employer has put you at the bottom of the list. They have said, this person I can actually let go. Now, that's a reflection which you have. You don't know what's going through the mind of your boss, but you actually have to be asking yourself, am I one of those people who they will keep? If I am not one of those people they will keep, ask yourself why. Why is it that my dedicated work has been equated to someone who can be released? Is it the value I've been bringing to the table? That's a reflection you have at this time. And it is a tough reflection and a painful reflection for you to say, if they were to keep 5 people out of 20, I am not on the list. Ask yourself why. And as the owner of the labor, you need to say that this should never happen again. If there's something you need to do in your skill set, something which you need to change, make sure that changes. It could be your commitment, it could be your timekeeping. Make sure that those things change so that this doesn't happen again. But we need to understand the company is also a person of its own who needs to survive. And the company will make decisions to be able to survive. But you as an employee, you need to ask yourself and make a candid assessment of the labor you have been selling. And ask yourself, if they are letting me go, what am I doing next? So you need to ask yourself, in my skill set, what is it that I can do? And since we're at home, ask yourself, what can I start doing at home? Ask that question. What is that thing? All of us have skills. Some of us may have been, when we were growing up, our mothers taught us how to be tailors. We know how to make clothes. This is a good time to pull out that sewing machine which you put in the suitcase. And you put it up and say, by the way, I have started my tailoring enterprise.
I think it's important that people know that there is no shame in survival. A lot of people will decide those jobs to be seen doing that. Yeah.
That's very true. And no one will look at you badly when you say that, you know what, friends, I have settled. Now I am back into the chicken, or I have decided to get it. No one is going to. And that you may have come from a corporate job, but that is the reality now. This is a time when you move with the plan which is actually moving. So if you want, I wouldn't stop anyone from saying, you know what, give your boss a call. You offer your services and say, boss, what are you working on currently, so that I can help you work on it during this time. Do whatever you need to do to see if you can retain your employment. But don't for a moment think that the boss has an obligation to retain you. If he doesn't, You need to have a clear plan B. And that brought me to the second thing I wanted to mention, that don't hesitate to reach out for help. Reach out for help. And the best place to reach out for help, and you're looking for help in two ways. This could be support to just keep afloat in your home, but this could also be people who can give you those ideas. This is a time when you call friends who have been out there in the hustle and you ask them, how does it actually work? Tell me, talk me through, advise me, what do I need to start? Kind of that, those are the calls you need to be making every morning and checking on them and saying, you know what, a friend asks you, how much do you actually have? He tells you, I have this. If you have that, you could try to do this. We all have that friend, but we haven't made that call. So those are the conversations which need to be had. But I think
what clear about having family conversations and bringing in your spouse. And I thought about even the situation of schools, because you know the child is going to this kind of school before COVID-19, and things are tight now. Maybe you're not going to have your job. You're not. So there's a lot that's going to change, and that could also include changing schools for the child, or you know things like that. So much could change when you reach your budget and you realize you can't afford your previous lifestyle.
Exactly, and I think that the challenge here is that some of those conversations are really tough conversations. It's tough to say that you're moving your children from this school to another school, but the truth is sometimes both of you have been working, and both your jobs are at risk, and both of you may be out of work. And that's this time we are in, that's when we have that conversation. You say, by the way, the reality is, this is where I am. And then some people may say that, by the way, if they let me go, they will give me a small package to go away with. The question is, they may give you a package, but will it actually be paid? Because many businesses are struggling with cash flow problems. Will they actually pay that in cash? So those are questions you are asking. And I think as families, we have to have very candid conversations at this point. However, another way of looking at this is sometimes you still have your work, but you have actually noticed where the money, the leakages have been, even within your own household. So you need to, the time we're spending at home, you have to pay attention to detail and actually ask yourself, exactly how long does a loaf of bread take us and why? Those are questions you're asking. You're asking, if we buy sugar, how long does it take us? Nowadays, because of the circumstances we are in, you may discover that your children actually are not, they don't have a problem with not eating bread.
All right. And my final question was going to be about how you handle what you have on you now, but I guess you've answered quite a bit of it. How you handle what you have in your pocket now, and before I tell you that that's going to be what you have for now, how do I start managing my finances better, right from things like transportation, meals, schools, all of the things that I have to do?
You have to ask yourself, assuming, and I liked what was mentioned earlier in the session, when they talked about if you are going to spend 6 months without any cash coming in, do you have enough cash to push you through? The first things you're asking are, what are absolutely the important things? What important things do I need to do? If there is an opportunity that has been brought about by the financial institutions to restructure loans, have you called your banker, or do you expect them to decide for you? The bank is also a business. They want to be able to make money. So it's you to call back and you say, you know what, I saw this thing going around, but for me specifically, this is how I am going to restructure mine. So that you make sure that you hold on to the cash. And that's even true for an individual. If you're an individual, you have to ask yourself, if this is how much I have, first of all, how much do I need for the basics? For food, for housing, for just existing as an individual and for my family. So those things, how much are they? This is a good time to sit down and make a candid look at the budget and say, what is our budget? What exactly do we need? After you have done that, then you ask yourself, what obligations do I have? I mean, your bank may give you a bit of a window to keep moving. Your landlord may give you a bit of a window. But between the bank and the landlord, who have you talked to? Talk to your bank. Sit with your bank and tell them that, you know what? The truth is, I don't expect a salary in April. I don't expect a salary in May. Possibly June. So for now, push 3 months, I won't be able to make payments. But it is you to initiate that conversation, not your bank. Your bank can't make that decision for you. The bank would prefer that you pay, but you need to make sure that you have had that conversation. The same is true with your landlord. You want to sit with your landlord and you say that, you know what, landlord, you know what is happening. The landlord knows. But you also have to remember it is happening in the landlord's house also, and you are the income he was expecting. So you need to have that conversation with him that, you know, I have been paying 500,000, but I only have 200 for now. So for the next 3 months, allow me to pay 200. The rest we will hold it and we'll pay it when the situation normalizes. If you are the one who initiates that conversation, you put yourself in a good negotiation position. Now, the worst thing to do is to hide from these people, to take off your phone and you say, let them deal with that situation and they will find me where. So some people have chosen that path, and I don't think it's a very good path, because that path puts the other person on the defensive. They are also looking for you. So some landlords are just waiting for the president to announce, today we have reopened. And at exactly that point, they will be the first people to be at your door and say, you carry out your things because this has ended. But I think that what you need to do during this period is to ask yourself, have I had conversations with these people? So that my realities, my case has been heard and we have found a middle ground. Everyone knows it's a tough time, and I think people are being as generous as they can be. So they are trying to listen to one another a bit more. And I think another thing which I'll say is that for those who have a bit more at this point, this is the time when you actually have to effect generosity. You need to make sure that you're reaching out more. And as a country, we know that even within your own family, there are the cousins, the brothers, the sisters who may not be doing well. This is the time where you say, you know what, I don't have much in my household, but possibly I have sent you a sack of posho to keep pushing. That is one of the things you need to think about. So even though you're thinking about it from the perspective that actually my household is okay, then you have to think, how is my neighbor doing?
Right. Thank you so much, Ronald. What would you like to say as we close this conversation on what the future might be like for a lot of people in regard to their jobs, their businesses, but also their handling of what little they have on them now?
Yeah, I think for when you think about our country, the majority of us are young people. The majority are below 30, and I think for us, the young people, chances are high that it's possible that we have never gone through a crisis of this sort. You hear stories from your parents telling you during war, this is how we used to deal with issues, but possibly you have never had a personal experience. So I think for us, we need to ask ourselves, are we going to walk out of this situation better, or is this situation going to defeat us? And I think the most important thing to pick from this situation are the life lessons for you as an individual, to say, this won't happen to me again. If this crisis caught your family without any savings, you have to say, this won't happen to me again. Why? Because the crisis is the one which puts light on that part of your life. So I think we need to ask ourselves, have we walked out of this place stronger? And we are believing God that we will all walk out of this situation stronger. But it's an individual reflection. So you as an individual reflect and say, what lessons have I picked? Am I a better person after this?
All right, thank you so much, Ronald. I lost a bit of what you said at the end, but I think we all got the point, and we get the point. Reflect, use these 21 days to actually better yourself and to plan for, whatever the future looks like for you. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us, Ronald.
Yes, thank you.